In this video, we're going to look at how to add course reports to your Game Caddie record book. And you'll notice that we're using Game Caddie record book 3.6. And the way that you add reports in this version is slightly different than how you did it in previous versions. Now, when I first made the videos for the Game Caddie record book, I made this particular video on adding courses and divided it into two parts. The second part uses the Seaside course as the example, but in Game Caddie record book 3.6, you've already got Seaside built into it with all 10 of those reports. So I'm going to use a different example for this particular video. But recognize that when you go in the next video to build the actual Seaside button and create the macro that runs everything to make this button work, that process has not changed at all with record book 3.6, even though that video uses record book 3.5.4 or 5 or something like that as the basis for the example. Okay, so in summary, what I'm saying is we're going to build a set of 10 courses in this video and do it in a way that's different than the way you would have done it in earlier versions, and we're going to use a different example. So in this particular example, I'm going to build 10 course reports for the Los Angeles course and not Seaside, which is what's used in the example in part 2. Now, just so you know what you're looking at here, these buttons here run a batch of reports when you press them. These would run tournament reports, so this would be for this would run all the reports related to Tournament 1. This button would run all the reports related to Tournament 2, Tournament 3, and this button down here would run everything for all of your tournaments and non-tournament data combined. These over here just run the reports specific to the name of the course that's on the button. And we're going to build 10 course reports for Los Angeles in this video. The individual reports for all of these things show up in this list here. So you see at the top, these are the reports for Tournament 1. These are the reports for Tournament 2, and so on and so forth. And if you scroll down here, you'll see that there are ones that are called T99 reports, and you'll see the course name preceded by an X. That's for alphabetizing purposes only. That X doesn't do anything special other than keep things in the order in which I want them. But these are the reports that we're going to build. So you see Stadium here has 10 reports associated with it, and we're going to build these same 10 reports, but we're going to do it for Los Angeles. So I'll go ahead and close that up. And to make life a little bit easier for us, I'm going to drop down the ribbon here, so I'll come up here and click on Home, and over here on this little thumbtack, and that'll keep that visible the whole time. And we'll come over here and click on this double arrow to open the shutter bar. Okay, now we can see a whole bunch of things, queries down here, tables up here, and the reports would be farther down if we scroll down there. The first thing that you've got to do when building course reports, well, the first thing you got to do is that you've actually got to play some rounds with that course. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for you to check whether or not what you're doing is working as you go through the process. If you don't have any data, you can't run a report. So you need to first have done these things. Under Table Golf Courses, we'll double click it here. And we want to make sure Los Angeles is already set up as a course that the database recognizes. And over here, you can see that it is. And it's got all kinds of information in it. And here's the whole information. And it goes all the way, if we scroll over here, of course, it goes all the way over to the end. And you can see that this is, of course, is a par 71. Okay, so this is the Los Angeles line. And for the purposes of this video, I actually didn't have any data for Los Angeles, even though it's in the database here. What I've done is I've created some data based on some Jersey Pines rounds that I have run. And so what you're going to see is I think it's 10 different rounds that have been played that look like they've been played on Los Angeles, but they were actually played on Jersey Pines, which has a different par for the course, and also the holes, the pars don't match up. So some of the data might look unusual. You might see that, I've gotten a bunch of eagles on things when in truth that didn't really happen, but that doesn't matter for our purposes. Okay. So I'm going to come over to table scorecards. Let's close this out just so it doesn't get messed up in any way. A double click over here on table scorecards, and I'll show you. Come over here to APBA course name. I'm going to select all of these and then come down here to Los Angeles. You can see that I do have data for that, and that's the Jersey Pines data that I was talking about. And all right, so we've got data to work with. That's the key thing that we need to make sure happens. So we'll close this out, and we're not going to save the design that I filtered there. We'll come down here to the actual reports and start there. And one thing I suggest is that when you're building new course reports, that you pick a set of course reports that's alphabetically near the ones that you want to create. So you can see that these reports here are all alphabetized. I've stuck an X in front of the course reports to keep them separate from the tournament reports, which are up here higher on the list. If I didn't do that, these could get intermingled alphabetically with some of the tournament reports, and then it just makes it harder to work with any particular set because they can be scattered about. Okay, so let's pick Magnolia since we're going to use Los Angeles as our example. So I'll right click on the X Magnolia average stats per round, and the first thing I want to do is I want to copy that, and then I'm going to right click again anywhere over here on the left side of the screen, and I'll click paste, and then it's asking me for the report name, and I want to change that to T99X, and I'm just going to call this LA. Keep it simple. All right, and I'll click OK. Now we got that in our list now. I'm going to right click on it again, but this time we want to look at design view, and this is a pretty easy report to build. There's not much we need to change here, but I do like to work from left to right. So with report as the selection that we've got up here, I'm going to click on format, and I'm going to edit the caption, and that's the only thing we'll change under this tab. And again, I'm just going to call it LA, and I'll click on data, and I want to change the tail end of this query. So it actually says Magnolia. I'll show you that arrow back, and I'm going to delete the Magnolia part, and I'm just going to stick LA in there. Now that query doesn't yet exist, so what we need to do is we need to scroll up here to the queries and find one of these examples down here that matches this. So query stats, rounds combined. I could pick any of these, but just so I don't get mixed up, I'm going to stick with query stats, rounds combined, Magnolia. Right click on that. I'm going to copy it. Right click again. I'm going to paste, and I'm going to rename this just the way I did the other one, and we'll call it LA. Click OK. Now that one's created. Right click again, click on Design View to open it up. And the only thing we have to change on this report is way over here on the right, and in the quotation marks we've got Magnolia, and we want to change it to Los Angeles. Don't put LA in here. The database won't recognize that, since in table golf courses it's called Los Angeles. We have to use that name exactly as it's spelled in the table golf courses that I showed you before. All right, now we can run this just to see what we get, and you see that we get what looks like data for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 golfers. That's right, that's exactly what we were looking for. And set to round par 71, that's correct. And now we've got a bunch of data that we're going to use on more than one occasion, but it did exactly what we wanted it to do. So we'll close it out, and we'll save the design changes for this. All right. And now we can run this report here. I like to do it in print preview, although you can certainly do it in report view if you want, but I like to see if there's extra pages and things like that. So we'll click print preview, and there's our data. We've created our first report for Los Angeles. We didn't have to rename it. The database is smart enough to figure out that that's what the name of this report should be. We got page 1 of 1. Everything looks exactly the way that we wanted it to. So I'll click close print preview, and we'll click close here, and we'll save our design changes. Okay, that's the first one, and we're all done. Now I'm just going to go ahead and close this form, the main menu, so we don't have to fool with it or look at it for the rest of what we're going to do. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it so it's a little bit easier maybe to follow along with what I'm doing. So we'll come back down to do the next report. So we're looking for Magnolia, the second one in the list after the average stats per round. We've got Magnolia fairway percent rankings. So we'll right click here to copy it, right click again to paste. Then we're going to rename, and we'll make the same kinds of changes that we made before. Call it LA. All right, now we've got that report, and you can see why I suggested that you pick something that's close alphabetically. It just makes life a whole lot easier. We'll click Design View here, and now we are going to need to change the header up here. Unfortunately, that's one step that you've got to do for most of these course reports, but it's simple enough to do. All right, so that's called Los Angeles now. We're going to come over here and click on the down arrow to pull up the selection called Report. Click on Format, and we're going to change this Magnolia to LA. And the reason that we do that is that when we run the batch reports, this is what it's going to tell us that it's processing. And so if we didn't make that change, it would tell us that it's processing a Magnolia report, even though it's actually doing Los Angeles, but it would just get confusing. So you always want to change the caption for that reason. And we'll come over here now to the Data tab, and we got to change the tail end of this query from Magnolia to LA. And of course we can't run the report because that query doesn't exist yet. So we'll come back over here, scroll up to the queries, and this time we're going to look for, this is going to be closer to the top because these are alphabetized. We're going to look for query ranked fairway percent Magnolia. We'll right click on that. We'll copy it. Right click again to paste and make Similar edits to what we made before. All right, and we've got that. We'll right click to design view, and this opens up in what's called the SQL view, and we're going to come back to this, but I don't want to start there. We want to start with design view. So you click on view, come down here to design, and this is what's different about 3.6 versus versions earlier than that. The way you have to do this is a little bit more difficult, but it's just necessary, you know, in order for these reports to run right. So this table here is, remember, this is about Magnolia, and we don't want Magnolia. We want this to give us data for Los Angeles. So we actually have to right click here. We want to remove this table. And when we do that, some things are going to happen. I'll just go ahead and do it and show it to you. All right. So we've removed the table, and you'll notice that all this stuff down here disappeared that is to the right of fairway percentage. No worries. I'm going to right click again up here, and now we're going to click on Show Table, and we'll click on the Queries tab, and we want to come down here and we want to find the Query Stats Rounds Combined LA. That's the one we created a little bit earlier, and we're going to add it. Okay, and then we'll close this out, and just because things tend to jump around a little bit if you don't, I'm dragging these little boxes here to make them larger, clicking on Golfer ID over here on Query Stats Round Combined LA, and I'm going to drag it over here with the left clicker held down over to Golfer ID, and I'm going to do the same thing. Left click on APBA Card Year, hold it down, and drag it over here to APBA Card Year. Next thing we need to do is we need to add the things that we took away down here. We need to put them back. All right, and this is pretty simple. Just double click on the ones that I show you. So double click on Golfer ID, name first, name last, APBA Card Year, total rounds, and fairway round. Okay, one more change we need to make. And they won't all be this difficult, but this one happens to be that way. We'll click on the box that has rank in it, and we're going to press Shift F2. Open this up, and you'll notice that this is the ranking procedure, and it's set for Magnolia. So we need to change Magnolia here to LA. And now we're going to go back to the SQL view, and there's one change we need to make here. And so I'm going to click off of this to take it out of select all mode. And the only change we need to make is right before the as T on phrase. Okay, and so we'll click between combined and Magnolia, and we're just going to add LA. That's the only change you need to make there. You can click run. So you can see that it's now ranking our 10 golfers based on their fairway percentages. That did exactly what we want it to do. We're going to close that out. We're going to save those changes, come back here, and now we want to run the report based on the query that we created, and everything looks perfect. All right? I've only got 10 rounds, so that's why you're only seeing, you know, rankings that go up to 10 here. All right, and we could actually just click over here if we wanted to save a step. Yes, we want to save these changes, and that goes away. All right, let's go back down here, and I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit so that you'll now have an understanding of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to come down here to the third course on the list, and this one is greens. In regulation percentage rankings, right click, copy, right click, paste, edit the name, all right, come over here, right click on this, click on design view, make the change up here to get the name to Los Angeles. over here. We're going to click to get report. Click on format. Change this to LA. Click on data. Click there. Get rid of Magnolia. Add LA. All right. Come back up here. Find the query ranked greens and regulation percentage for Magnolia. Right click, copy, right click, paste, edit the name. Right click, design view. And again, as you might imagine, we're going to do the exact same thing over here. So we'll click on view, design view. Got to get rid of this table. Right click, remove table. Right click again, show table. Click on queries. Come down here to queries, to query stats round combined LA. Same one we used before. We'll click close. Going to make these a little bit larger just so that when we drag, things don't scroll around on us. Left click here, drag it over from golfer ID to golfer ID, APBA card year, drag it over to APBA card year. Come up here to the top, double click golfer ID, name first, name last, APBA card year, total rounds. And this time, instead of fairway rounds, we're going to come down here to GIR rounds. Okay, so we've got that. Click on the rank expression here, Shift F2, edit this to say LA. Click OK. Come over to View, SQL View, click over here somewhere, and edit the one that's before as T on. Then run it, and now we've got our greens in regulation for our 10 golfers. That looks the way we want it to. We'll close this out. Yes, we're going to save it. This is ready to go. Click on Print Preview, and now we've got our 10 golfers ranked and our report, which looks just the way we want. So we'll close that out. All right, so now we've got 3 reports made, and some of these are going to be similar, some of them are going to be different, and that's why I need to show you all of them in this video. I'm going to come down here to Magnolia. This is the longest drive leaders. Okay, so right click. I'm going to copy it as we do each time. I'll right click again to paste, edit. All right. Let's see, where do we have it here? There we go. And I'll right click on that. Design view. This is our report. We've got to edit the name. All right. Click on this to get report selected. Click on format. LA. Data. And we're going to click there. Delete the Magnolia part, add LA, come over here, and we're going to look for the query ranked long drive Magnolia. Query ranked long putt, long drive. Here we go. We've got to go up a little higher. And there's Magnolia right there. Okay, right click, copy, right click again to paste. Edit the name. I know this is tedious, but once you get it done, you will be so happy. Okay, so now we've got it. Right click, go to Design View. Now, we don't have to get rid of any of these up here. This is a little bit different design. This works just fine for us, so no changes to make here. We'll click here, and then press Shift F2. And the edit we need to make here is we need to change the part that's in the quotation marks. So where it says Magnolia, we need to write out Los Angeles, because that's what the Game Caddie recognizes. And we'll click OK. And we got to make one more change over here where it says Magnolia. We got to write out Los Angeles. Oops. All right, and we can run this. And this is a top 20 report. So it's only going to return the top 20 rankings, but we only have 10, so you're not going to get that many anyway. But if you had more than 20, you'd only get 20 of them. If you want to change this number to something else, knock yourself out, there are some ones that you can check from the drop-down list, or you can write your own number in up there if you want to. Well, I like 20. We'll just keep it at 20. Click Run, and there we go. We've got our long drives in descending order from 340 down here to 295. That looks right. And we'll go ahead and save that design. And we're going to run this in print view. And that's exactly what we're looking for. All right, that's good to go. So now we got 4 reports made. We'll save that one. Come back down here. Again, we're looking for the Magnolia ones. Now we got longest putt. So we'll right click on that, copy, right click again, paste, edit the name. Click OK. Come up here, there we go, right click, design view. Got to change the name up here in the header. And we're going to click on Report, Format, LA. And we're going to change the Magnolia part here to LA. Okay. Come up here to Query, Ranked Long Putt Magnolia. Query, Ranked Long Putt Magnolia. There we go. Right click, copy, paste, edit the name. Right click, design view. Where's design view? There we go. All right, again, no changes we need to make up here. Just need to click on this box, Shift F2, and change Magnolia to Los Angeles. Again, we're spelling out the name because that's how it's spelled out in table golf courses. Okay, same deal over here. And we'll run it, and you can see that long putt 32 feet, that's the longest putt for that round, and the longest putt for this round was 8 feet by Cameron Champ. All right, that looks right. Close it. Yes, we'll save it, and now we'll do this to make sure everything looks right. Yep, looks just the way we want it, and we'll go ahead and close and click yes. All right, we're just buzzing right through these. Let's come down here to the next one. All right, now this one's going to be a little bit different, okay? So we'll right click here. Again, we're going to copy it and right click to paste it, change the name. We're going to call this LA. All right. Come up here, there it is, right click on it, design view. And what you'll notice here is that the way that this report is designed, and now depending on when you do this and how much data you've got entered into your database, your example for Magnolia or whatever course you're using as the model for the changes you're going to make, you might have other field values already in here. So this would be a birdie, this would be a par, and this would be a bogey. You might have an eagle, you might have a double bogey, and so on and so forth. The reason that 3.6 comes with just these 3 built into it is because this report will not run if it's missing data from certain fields. So if I had put, a -2 in here, but none of our data was 2 under par, in other words, no one had an eagle, then we'd get an error message and the report wouldn't run. So in order to run this report, you have to have at least 1 birdie, 1 par, and 1 bogey somewhere in the rounds that you've played for that particular course. All right? So we may choose to add more values in here based on the data we've got, and I'll show you how to do that. But what we need to do is come over here to Format and rename this to LA. Come over here to Data and get in front of Magnolia there and delete it and put in LA. Okay, come back up here. And these names over here can be quite similar, so you got to pay a little bit of attention. So query whole number par variance, come up here. It's going to be near the top. Query whole number par variance. There's the X tab Magnolia. That's the one we want. So we're going to copy that, and then we're going to paste that. And rename it in the usual way. All right, right click on it. We're going to look at it in design view. The only thing we need to change here is we need to change this to Los Angeles. All right, so when we run this, what you see is that we actually do have some eagles now in our database. So we'll want to add that to our report. We have some double bogeys, and we even have a triple bogey over here. So with knowing that information based on this query here, we know that we're going to need to add 3 fields. And I'll show you how to do that. Now, we can leave this open. We don't have to close it. I think, yeah, we will have to save it in order for this to work. So let's just click on the Save button up there. Come back here, and we'll click on the course that we had. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click on Design, and we're going to add existing fields, okay? And now you can see that you've got a -2, you've got a +2, you've got a +3, and those are the ones that we're going to add. The headers are already in there for you on this particular course, but the detail for the data is not. So we're going to take it and drop it, drag it and drop it in this particular area. We're going to get rid of that one because that's really what the header would be. And then we're going to kind of drag this into place. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. All right. And then what we're going to do is the same thing for 2 and 3. So we'll get rid of that. Drag this kind of into place. I'm just eyeballing it. Okay. All right. And then we've got this. We're going to drag this into place. Get rid of that 3. And you'll notice that these are not formatted the same as the other ones. And we can change the formatting by simply clicking on one of these and then pasting it over here. In fact, I'll do it, but there's one additional step that you're going to have to do the very first time you do it. So let's change this eagle first. So I'll click on the birdie here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to right click on 2, and I'm going to hit paste formatting. Okay. Now, that doesn't change the size of the box, but what it does do is it gets the colors right and it gets the spacing right and some things like that. I'm going to drag it a little bit farther over here. We can absolutely copy formatting for all of these. So I will click 2 and 3. I'm going to hold down the control button while I click on this one so I get both of them highlighted, and I'm going to click paste formatting, and they're going to be correctly formatted. Now this time I want to look at it in layout view to see how well these lined up, and you can see that they're a little bit off, so I'm going to click there and I'm going to use the left arrow key to move that over one number. This one's going to have to be moved over several ones, and this one needs to be moved over several as well. We don't have the sums down here, so let's go back to design view, click on this, left click, right click, and we want to do total, and we want to do the sum, and that will always put it down here for you. Going to do the same thing here, right click, total, sum, right click, total, sum. We're going to need to format these. We can take any one of these, copy it, and then click on this, holding down the control button, click on the other two, right click, and we're going to paste the formatting. All right, now click on home. We want to look at it again in layout view, and we can see that maybe is a little bit off. Put it in that location. I don't want to spend a lot of time playing around with this because some of these won't ever line up perfectly, at least according to my eye, but close enough for our purposes. And we don't have any hashtags here, so all our boxes are big enough to hold the data that we have for them. At some point, you may need to enlarge a box in order to be able to see the entire number. If you get all hashtags, that just means that your box isn't big enough, and so you have to come back to the design view and drag it to change the size. Okay, but I think we're good to go. Let's take a look at this in print preview. And it tells us we got 10 rounds in there, which is what we know. We got our totals down here, and everything looks just fine. So we'll go ahead and we'll close that out, and we'll click yes to save. We'll close this to get rid of that. Okay, that's one of the more difficult ones to do, and you might have to do it on more than one occasion in terms of adding the fields and adding the sums to it as you get a wider dispersion of scores. We'll come back down here to the Magnolia courses. The next one in our list is Putts per round rankings. That'll be a little bit simpler. We'll right click on that, we'll copy it, right click again to paste, edit the name, in the usual fashion. And there it is, right click, design view. You got to change the name up here in the header. You can see that this again is not rocket science, but there are a few things that you need to do. Now, we don't have the property sheet exposed because we were adding fields, so let's click on property sheet and then come over here, click on report, format, and we'll get rid of Magnolia. All right, and click on data and change Magnolia to LA. All right. Come back up here to the queries. Now we're looking for a query ranked Putts Magnolia. Right click, copy, right click, paste, edit the name. Click OK. right click, design view. We got, again, we're in SQL view. We want to be in design view over here. We got to get rid of this table here. This is, again, if I open this up, you'd see that it's for Magnolia, and we don't want that, of course. So right click, remove table, right click, show table, click on Queries tab, come down here near the bottom, and we're looking for Query Stats Rounds Combined LA. We'll add that, we'll click Close, make these boxes a little bit bigger, click on Golfer ID, drag it over to the other Golfer ID, APBA card year, drag it over there. And now we need to add Golfer ID, name first. I'm just double clicking to get these to show up. And we've got to scroll down here to find Putt's round. There we go. All right. Click on rank, Shift F2, and got to put the right table name or query name in there. Click OK. And then we got to come over here to View and SQL. Click in the white space, come up over here to this one before the ASTI on, and change that Magnolia to LA. And then we click Run, and we've got our rankings for average putts per round. That looks right to me. We'll close it. Yes, we want to save it. And now we'll run our report, print view, and we're great. Okay, let's close that out. Save it. Come down. We just have a few more to do here. And this one that we need to do next is scoring by hole. And this one is the most challenging of all of these to do. Again, I'll show you how to do it. It's not, impossible or, too complicated to do. It's just there's extra steps that are involved. So we'll right click, we'll copy, paste, change the name. All right. Come over here to Design View, right click. All right. You notice that this looks a lot like the par variance by hole report. But there are a couple of differences. Well, one being, of course, that it's not par variances, it's the actual hole score itself. And again, depending on how much data you've added in or whether you've edited other course reports or not, you may have fields other than 3, 4, or 5 in here, but the default for all new courses is 3, 4, and 5. And that means that in order for this report to run, there needs to be at least 1 3 in the report, there needs to be at least 1 4 in the report, and there needs to be at least 1 score of 5 in the round or rounds that you have played, okay? And we know from the par variance report that we're going to have more scatter, we're going to have more hole scores than what we have shown here, and that we're going to need to add some of those. But the easiest way to do that is to start with the query itself. But before we get there, let's make the necessary edits here. Clicking on Format and changing the name of this caption from Magnolia to LA. Come over here to Data, and let's call the query what we need it to be. And we're going to get rid of the Magnolia part, add LA. And this is query hole, now hole score. So we'll go up here to these queries. Again, this will be near the top. Query, hole score. We got Magnolia, that's the one we want. Right click, copy, right click, paste. Change the 2 tails of this query name. All right. And then what we're going to do is right click on it, put it in design view, and the only change we have to make to this is to change Magnolia to Los Angeles. And then we can run it, and you're going to see a wider variety of scores. So instead of having just a 3 or 4 or 5, you can see we have 2s, 6s, and 7s now, and those are the fields that we're going to need to add. And I'll go ahead and close that because I think I can remember 2, 6, and 7, and we'll save it. Okay, we need to come over here, click on Design, and add existing fields. And what we'll do is we'll click on 2, drag it to this location, get rid of the label just like we did before. I'm going to shrink this box because we don't need nearly anything that large. And we'll just move it a little bit over. And we'll do the same thing for 6 and 7. Push it up a little bit and close it off. And we'll put a 7 in here. Delete the label. Move it up. Okay. And let's make the box a little bit bigger. Okay. Now you notice that these are formatted differently than these boxes here. I mean, if you can't see anything else, you can see that this is left justified and these are right justified. And we want to change that. And we could go in and do this individually. It's a little bit easier perhaps to do that in this case. So I'm going to click on 2, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the property sheet here and click on Format. And the only change that I'm really going to make here is I'm going to change this to, where is it here? I'm looking for here we go. Text align. I'm going to change it from general down here to right justified. Okay, because that's what that is. And I think our colorings are all going to be the same. If they're not, it's going to show up pretty vividly to us. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh, we've got boxes. All right. All right. All right. So to get rid of the boxes, we'll click over here on border width, hairline. Well, and the style, I guess, is the one we want actually, because we want it to be transparent. So now we're not going to see a box. So click on View, Print Preview, and the boxes are gone. These aren't lined up correctly. That's easy enough to fix. All right. You'll notice that some of these are in bold, and we're going to need to fix that as well. Okay, so we'll close the print view, and what I'm going to do though is I'm going to, instead of repeating what I just did there for 6 and 7, I'm just going to save myself some time by clicking here, right clicking. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click here. These are left clicks, but I'm going to hold down the control button for the second one, right click, and paste the formatting. All right, so it just took the formatting that we had here and applied it over here. And now we're going to look at it in layout view. And you can see that some of these things are not totally lined up right, so I'll click on them and then left arrow over some. Notice we don't have totals down here. I'm going to click on these and left over some, and the same with this. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on lining these up. You can do, whatever looks, right for you when you're building a report. But I just wanted to show you how to do that if you weren't familiar with that, how to take advantage of layout view. So we're going to come back here to design view, and we need to put the totals in. So we'll click on 2, right click, to get totals, and we're just going to do the sum. That's already built for us. Same over here. Right click, total, sum. Right click, total, sum. We need to format these. They don't match, right? So what we can do is click here and copy that, and then we can click here, hold down the control key, click here, hold it, and keeping the control key down, click there. Then we'll right click, and we'll paste that formatting. So now those are all in the same style as these here. Now, there's one other thing we have to do with this report, and it's something that appeals to me. You don't care about it, you don't need to do it. But the ones that are in bold, okay, refer to the par value. So it says par counts are in bold. But you can see, because we use Magnolia and the holes don't match up, okay, that the par values are not right. So, for example, on Los Angeles, the first hole is a par 5. But it's the 4 that's showing up as in bold. So we need to change the conditional formatting of many of these. I'm only going to do a couple of them to show you how it's done, but you'll need to do that to make sure that all 18 of these are correct for the course that you are using. So what I'm going to do here is just make a mental note that hole number 1 is a par 5. That needs to be changed. And hole number 2 is a par 4, and that's going to need to be changed. All right? And what you'll want to do is you'll want to write all of these down. So you'll want to list all the par 3s. So you would list 4, 6, 14, 16. So all right, these are my par 3s. Then you would list all your par 4s. So it would be 2, 3, and so forth. And then you'd want to list on a sheet of paper all your par 5s. So that would be hole 1, hole 11, hole 17. Those are your 3 par 5s. Okay. So we're not going to do all of those, but that's the best way to do it when you're going to go through all 18 of them. All right. So how do you do that? All right. So what we're going to do is that we know that we want hole 1 to be a par 5, but it's currently a par 4. So we've got to basically do two things. We've got to make sure it's not listed as the par for par 4. So I'm going to click on the 4 field here, come up here to format, click on conditional formatting, and you can see that all of the ones for Magnolia that were par 4s are shown in this list right here. But that doesn't match Los Angeles. This hole number 1 is not a par 4. So what we could do is we could delete it, which is in fact what we're going to do. Or if we were doing all of these, we might want to just edit this to make it a different number, so that if we didn't have a number represented here for par 4, we wouldn't have to delete and then go ahead and create a new rule. We could just edit an existing one. But we're just going to go ahead and delete it. So I left click on it, and I'm just going to click on delete, and it gets rid of that, and we're going to apply that change. And then I'm going to come up here on at the scroll bar, and I'm going to click on 5. And now I don't have a par 5 in here for hole number 1. I could edit one of these down here, which is pretty simple. All you have to do is click on it, click edit, and then change the number that's here, click OK. But instead, this is a little bit trickier. I'm going to click on new rule and show you what you have to do. So I'm going to click on new rule, click on here to get the expression, and we want to put in, and make sure it's bracketed, hole no for hole number equals 1. Then we want to click on the bolding, because that's what we want for hole number 1 to be. And I'll click OK. And then if we want to move this to the top of the list so we keep these in order and they're a little bit easier to work with, that's all we've got to do. And now hole 1 is going to show up as bold when we run our report. Okay. And so I come over here to home, click on view, click on print preview, and now you can see that this 1 is now in bold. All right? Simple process, takes a little bit of time to do, but now you know how to do it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just close this out. We'll save it, even though there are layout things here we might want to change if we were doing this for real, and I will save that. Okay, now let's come down here, and we just have a couple more of these reports to do. click on the next Magnolia course, which is the Sand Save rankings. We'll copy that, right click again to paste, edit the name, and the rest of these are going to be way easier by comparison. Click on LA, and that's the one we want to edit. So right click on that, look at it in design view. Remember to change the header name up here to Los Angeles. Okay, click here to get report format. Let's change this. Whoops, to LA. Click on data and change that to LA. All right, let's go up here to the queries and look for ranked sand save percentage for Magnolia. Let's see, I think I passed it here. Yep, there it is. Right click, copy, paste, edit the name. Change that to LA, click OK. Let's edit it. Right click, design view. Okay, got to come down here to design. Got to get rid of this because this is going to say Magnolia again. There we go, just to show you. Right click, remove table. Right click, show table. Over here to queries. And come down here to query, stats, rounds combined, LA. Select that, add it, close. Lengthen these again so they're a little easier to work with. Click on golfer ID and drag it over to the other golfer ID, APBA card year, drag it over here to that APBA card year. All right, we're going to click on golfer ID, name first, name last, APBA card year, total rounds. Now we've got two down here we want to click on because the way that the sand saves are calculated is a little bit different. So we want to click on GSB, that's greenside bunkers per round and sand saves per round. So that's basically looking at how many times were you in the sand and how many times did you get a sand save. All right, so we've got all those. We're going to run, oops, we should not run that. My bad. Let me come back over here to SQL view, which is what we need. Click in the white space and this tells you why you need to make this change. That's the reason we didn't get anything to show up, because of the fact that that was still set to Magnolia. So now when we run it, we get our data. So we've got our rankings for sand save percentages. That looks exactly the way we want it to. We'll close that out. Yes, we want to save. Come down here to the report. Well, our report's already up here. Don't need to open it. We can just click on View, Print, Preview, and we've got the same information in a report format. All right, that is good to go. So let's close it and we'll save it. And we're coming up on our last report, coming down the home stretch here. So we'll come down here to Magnolia, and the very last one we need to do is total putt distance leaders. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy it, right click again to paste, get rid of the front part. Click here to get rid of Magnolia, put in LA, click OK, and now we're going to right click on this, design view, got to change the name of the course here, and by this point you should have it down pat. You could sing along if you know the words. All right, we're going to come over here, click on report, click on format, get rid of Magnolia. I want to call it LA. Click on data, and we're not going to be able to see everything, so we'll click there and we'll scroll over a little bit until we see the Magnolia and change it to LA. All right, come back up here to the top, and now we're looking for query rank total putt distance Magnolia. There it is. Right click, copy, right click, paste. Get rid of this. Put in LA. Click OK. Right click on it. Design view. Don't have to make any changes up here. We do need to click in this box. Shift F2. And we need to edit what's in the quotes. Changing Magnolia to Los Angeles, or whatever your course name is that you're building. Come over here, and this is going to be our final change. Put in Los Angeles, and we're ready to run it. And there we go. There's our total putt distance with Phil at 119 feet, Cameron Champ down here with 54 feet. All right, and we'll close that out. We'll save it. We got our report here. Again, we're just doing a top 20. This is a leaderboard report, or a leader report. Click Print Preview, and all of our scores that we're looking for are in there. All right, that's how you do it. That's how you create 10 new reports. You can do this with any course. The process is exactly the same. Again, as I said, it's a little bit time consuming and a little bit tedious, but we did this in one sitting. You can easily break this up into a couple sittings if you get bored or get interrupted for some reason. It's not difficult. And in that part 2 video that I talked about at the beginning of this one, it'll show you how to create the button that's on the form menu. We'll call that back up here so you can see it. Over here, create this button, and it'll show you how to create the macros and the modules necessary for running those batch reports by clicking on the button. Hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for sticking in there with me. I appreciate it. Until next time, grip it and rip it.